Let's be honest for a second. Brutally honest. Have you ever looked at someone in a position of power? A CEO, a politician, maybe even your own boss, and thought, how the hell did that person get there? You're not crazy for asking that. In fact, you might be one of the only sane people left if that question bothers you. Because there's a quiet truth most people won't say out louding. A lot of powerful people are not actually that smart. They're not wise. They're not strategic. Sometimes they're just loud, or lucky, or ruthless, or all of the above. Today we're diving into one of history's most understood political philosophers, Niccolo Machiavelli, and his brutal insights into why stupidity and power so often go hand in hand. This isn't just ancient philosophy. It's a psychological phenomenon that shapes our world today. From the corporate boardrooms to political offices, the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes being smart is exactly what keeps you from gaining power. Understanding this paradox might be the key to recognizing the manipulative forces operating in our society, or even helping you navigate your own path to influence. We've been raised on this feel-good idea that success is based on merit, that the smartest, most qualified, most ethical people rise to the top, that hard work and honesty will get you noticed, that the best person usually wins. But if that were really true, we'd live in a very different world. Look around. The reality is, power doesn't reward virtue. It rewards boldness. It rewards the people who are willing to do what others want. And most of the time, those people aren't the wisest. They're the most shameless. Take Julius Caesar. Everyone remembers him as this great general and statesman. And yes, he was smart, no doubt. But that's not what got him elected to high office. He spent insane amounts of borrowed money bribing people, throwing public games and charming the masses. While other politicians tried to play fair and keep their hands clean, Caesar played the game like his life depended on it. Because it did. He knew the rules weren't about fairness. They were about influence. It's like that in modern times too. Walk into any corporate office. The person leading the team is rarely the most competent. It's usually the one who talks the most in meetings, takes credit for other people's work, and knows how to schmooze upper management. You know the type. They look the part. They say the right buzzwords. And before you know it, they're running things, while the quiet, capable ones keep doing the real work in the background, unnoticed. It's not because the world is broken. It's because the world was never built to reward the best. It was built to reward the bold. There's a reason foolish people are often more comfortable in positions of power than smart people. The smarter you are, the more you see complexity. You hesitate, you second-guess yourself, you ask hard questions. Meanwhile, the fool has none of that weight. They see the world in black and white, not shades of gray. So they walk into power with a kind of dumb confidence that looks to the outside world like strength. And that kind of confidence is addictive. People crave certainty. They don't want a leader who says, "It's complicated." They want someone who says, "I've got the answer. Follow me." Even if that person does actually know what they're doing. Even if they're dead wrong. The point is they seem right. And in politics, in business, in life, that's often all that matters. Napoleon once said that in politics, stupidity is not a handicap. He meant it. Because in a world where people are overwhelmed and afraid and tired of thinking, the person who simplifies things, who makes people feel safe, no matter how clueless they are, is the one who wins. That's the uncomfortable truth. Stupidity, or at least a lack of deep thinking, can actually be an advantage. It makes people faster to act, bolder, less burdened by doubt. And when you combine that with charisma or timing or the right connections, you get someone who might be completely unqualified, but still ends up at the top. And here's the part that stings. The crowd usually helps them get there, because crowds don't follow the most thoughtful person. They follow the loudest, the most confident, the one who makes them feel something. That's why history is full of dangerous leaders who rose not in spite of their flaws, but because of them. So, if you've ever watched someone rise and thought, they don't deserve it, you're probably right. But it doesn't matter, because power doesn't go to the most deserving. It goes to the most willing, and the most foolish people end up in power not because something went wrong, but because this is how the system was always designed to work. Let's talk about a particular kind of person. Someone you probably know. Maybe you've even been this person. The one who believes that if you just do the right thing, tell the truth, work hard, and treat people fairly, everything will work out. Sounds noble, right? Admirable, ethical. It's also the kind of person who gets crushed repeatedly, because in the real world, the world of power, idealism is a liability, not a virtue. See, we've all been sold this story, that if you're good, the world will be good to you, that fairness is the default, that the system is built to reward decency. But history, psychology, and experience tell a different story. The world doesn't reward good people, it rewards useful people, and if you're not useful, or worse, if your morality gets in the way of someone else's ambition, then you're a speed bump. Let's go back to ancient Rome again. Think about the Roman Senate during Caesar's rise. You had men who believed in tradition, in checks and balances, in preserving the republic. They believed there were lines you just didn't cross. But Caesar, he didn't care about those lines. He stepped over them, and the moment he saw they wouldn't stop him, he ran. The idealists clung to the past. Caesar rewrote the future. And what happened to those defenders of tradition? Most of them ended up powerless or dead. The pattern repeats throughout history. Idealists build systems. Realists exploit them. That's the game. And the reason idealists keep losing is because they assume everyone else plays by the same rules. They don't. Not even close. You see it in politics today. The politician who tells the truth, who admits complexity, who refuses to make false promises, loses. Every time. Because the audience doesn't want the truth. They want reassurance. They want to feel good. And the person who understands that, even if they're dishonest, even if they're reckless, wins. That's the harsh reality. Idealists expect the world to respond to their good intentions. Realists understand that intentions don't matter. Only outcomes do. Idealists hesitate. They worry about ethics, consequences, collateral damage. Realists, they move, they act. They understand that in a world full of predators, the prey is whoever flinches first. Now, I'm not saying idealism is useless. It has its place. Idealists are often the architects of progress. They write the philosophies, start the movements, build the vision. But here's the catch-all. They rarely survive their own revolutions. Look at any movement that changed the world. The early radicals often end up in prison, exile, or erased entirely. The more ruthless people step in later and take credit for the change. Because power isn't just about dreaming of a better world. It's about controlling the one we have. Henry Kissinger once said something that cuts right to the bone. He said, "The real distinction is between those who want to do something and those who want to be someone." Idealists want to do something. Realists want to be someone. Guess who ends up running the world? Now maybe you're thinking, well, shouldn't we want good people in power? Of course. But here's the brutal twisting: good people often don't want power. They want justice, fairness, peace. And they assume that if the system is just someone else, someone qualified, will take care of the rest. So they step back. They compromise. They stay in their lane. And that leaves the door wide open for the person who doesn't hesitate. The person who doesn't care who gets hurt, who lies, who gets crushed, as long as they win. That's how idealists lose. Not because they're wrong, but because they keep bringing a code of honor to a knife fight. The game of power is not about being good. It's about being effective. And sometimes, effectiveness looks a lot like ruthlessness. So if you ever wonder why the world isn't run by the best people, the kindest people, the most thoughtful and decent, now you know. Because in the real world, the decent hesitate. And the hungry don't. There's a trait we're taught to hate from a young age, something we associate with arrogance, selfishness, even evil, shamelessness. We're told it's ugly. That modesty is a virtue. That you should know your limits, that you should feel bad when you step out of line. But here's the paradox. In the real world, especially in the game of power, shamelessness isn't a weakness. It's a weapon. The person who feels no guilt wins. The person who doesn't care what others think wins. The person who can lie, fail, get caught, and come right back as if nothing happened, they win. Why? Because shame is a brake pedal. Shame is what keeps most people in line. It stops you from pushing far, asking for too much, or repeating a mistake. But the truly shameless person, they have no brake pedal. They just keep going. And that's what makes them dangerous and effective. Think about it. In your own life, have you ever seen someone completely blow a deadline, botch a project, or say something outrageous? And somehow, they still get promoted, still get applause, still land on their feet. It's not an accident. It's a tactic. These people survive because they don't stop to apologize. They don't recall when criticized. They double down. They change the subject. They smile and pretend nothing happened. And eventually, people move on. That's the power of shamelessness. Let's bring this into politics. There's a reason certain leaders can survive scandal after scandal, lies, fraud, even criminal behavior, and yet their support holds steady. Why? Because the rules of public life are not written in ink. They're written in perception. If you act like you've done nothing wrong, if you project strength and certainty, people follow. Not because they believe you, but because you believe yourself so strongly, they feel safer just agreeing with you. Shamelessness creates gravity. It pulls people in. Look at someone like Napoleon. The man crowned himself emperor, literally. In a society that had just overthrown monarchy, where humility was supposed to be the new ideal, Napoleon just walked up and placed the crown on his own head. Not because he had a moral right to, but because he wanted it and wasn't ashamed to show it. You know how many people could have stopped him? Thousands. But nobody did, because most people are paralyzed by the fear of what others might think. Napoleon wasn't. Shamelessness, when combined with confidence, is mistaken for legitimacy. That's the trick. Now, this isn't just about historical figures or famous politicians. It's happening every day in the workplace. The employee who takes credit for others' work. Shameless. The influencer who posts fake wealth and fabricated stories to gain followers. Shameless. The executive who lays off thousands and then takes a bonus. Shameless. And it works, because most people are too polite to call it out, too afraid of confrontation. And even if they do speak up, the shameless person has already moved on to their next play. They don't waste time defending themselves. They advance. The great Machiavellian insight here is this: people don't remember what you did. They remember how you acted after you did it. If you act guilty, they assume you are. If you act untouchable, they start to believe maybe you are. Shamelessness isn't about being a villain. It's about being immune to emotional manipulation, especially the kind that says, you should know your place. Because the people who tell you that usually want to keep you small, and the ones who rise, they ignore it. They take up space, they interrupt, they self-promote, they push, and when they're told you can't do that, they shrug and do it anyway. That's how foolish people, bold, brash, overconfident, end up with power. Because while smart, moral people are waiting for permission, the shameless already grabbed the throne. If you've stuck around this long, you might be wondering, so what now? Should I just become shameless? Should I lie, cheat, manipulate like everyone else in power? No, that's not the point. This series wasn't written to turn you into a villain. It was written to wake you up, to burn down the fairy tale you were handed so you can see the world as it actually works, not how you wish it did. Because you can't win at a game you don't understand. And the truth is, most people are playing the wrong game entirely. They think life is about being liked, about being good, about being polite, consistent, humble. But power doesn't care about any of that. Power respects only two things: results and presence. And you don't either by sitting quietly, waiting to be noticed. But here's the good news. You don't have to become a monster to be powerful. You just have to stop being prey. Let's be clear. The problem isn't that power corrupts. It's that it attracts the already corruptible. Because the honest ones, the thoughtful, moral ones, they often walk away. They tell themselves, it's not worth it. They want peace, not conflict. But in walking away, they leave the field wide open for the worst people imaginable. And then we act surprised when the world is run by clowns, liars, and sociopaths. So how do you play the game without losing your soul? Firstly, understand the battlefield. Stop assuming merit will speak for itself. It won't. Stop assuming people will recognize your value. They won't. Not unless you make them. You don't need to lie, but you do need to speak louder. You need to show up like you belong, even when you don't feel ready. Because the truth is, the people running the show, they weren't ready either. They just acted like they were. Second, learn strategic empathy, not emotional naivety. Empathy in power is the ability to read people, to know what they want, what they fear, what they're trying to hide, and then use that knowledge to position yourself effectively. That's not manipulation. That's survival. That's leadership. The best strategists in history weren't cruel. They were perceptive. Third, master the art of selective shamelessness. You don't have to lie, but you do have to get comfortable with visibility, with asking for what you want, with self-promotion, with being underestimated, laughed at, even hated, and pushing forward anyway. People will try to guilt you into shrinking. Don't. You can be ethical and assertive. You can be moral and unapologetic. Look at someone like Abraham Lincoln. Yes, he was moral, but he was also politically ruthless. He knew when to compromise, when to silence enemies, when to bend the rules to save the larger mission. He understood power wasn't just about being right. It was about being effective. That's the line you have to walk, not between good and evil, but between idealism and realism, between the world you want and the world that exists. Because here's the final truth: power doesn't change you. It reveals you. It pulls the mask off. And most people are terrified of what they'll see. But if you've done the inner work, if you've faced your own ego, your fear, your need for validation, then you can step into power without becoming what you hate. You can lead without lying, win without selling your soul, but only if you stop playing by rules no one else is following. So ask yourself, are you willing to be misunderstood, to be criticized, to be doubted? Are you willing to be called arrogant for stepping up, while others stay small? Because that's the cost of power. Not just gaining it, but holding it without losing yourself. And if you can't stomach that, someone dumber, louder, and more shameless is already waiting to take your place.